All right, guys, we are getting ready to go live. Just have to get us up on all the different platforms. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so this is the number one question that is asked in real estate. If you can think of every question that has ever been asked with you, especially if you're meeting somebody for the first time and they're like, they don't know you and they find out that you're in real estate, the first question they want to ask is, how's the market? Or what did you hear about on the news? But it's always going to come back to how is the market? And today I'm going to keep it very, very real with you because I've always thought about, I want to make sure that I don't hurt anybody's feelings. And then in this one, I think if your feelings get hurt, then that's going to be on you because you should be able to answer this question. And I understand why you answer the question that you do the way you do because that's the way I was taught too. And so let's start with that first. When you're asking the question, how is the market? Many agents, whether you're new or you've been in business for a while, they're nervous because they're thinking, okay, well, I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want to sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. You are looking for a buyer or seller. You've got a lot of money that you spent getting into the business or maintaining your business, and you want to show your value. You want to show your knowledge. You want to show them why they should hire you. And this is your opportunity, right? You finally got a live one and you're thinking, okay, I got to show them everything I know and I got to tell them what the market is like so that they're going to want to pick me and they're going to hire me. And you've seen it, right? Are you the person who has just blurted out, the market is great? Oh my gosh, it's absolutely fantastic. Like this is a great time to buy because, sellers are just losing their shirts on the market right now. Like you got to get out there and buy only to out that they asked you because they were a seller and they were thinking, you know what, wow, now that I know that I'm going to lose my shirt, I probably am just going to hold off. Or you say something like to the seller, this is a great time to sell. Buyers are overpaying for houses all day long. And then the buyer goes, dang, I was really worried I couldn't afford. I mean, I guess it's really true that I can't afford to buy. Or they're buying into the doom and gloom that's out there, if they're a buyer or a seller. So many people I see, they just blurt out what is going on in the market and they're just giving their thoughts, feelings, and opinions. Some of it's accurate, it's true information, but it's not what is the right answer. And so think of it this way. If you go to a restaurant and the people, you go to the waiter and you ask them what's good on the menu. There's no context there. And a lot of times they will just start telling you what is great on the menu. Now think about it. If you're a vegetarian and they're telling you that the steak is amazing, like you have no interest. And if you love steak and they're like you should get the salad, again, you've got no interest. And so is it our fault for asking the question, what's good on the menu without giving them any context? Probably. Instead of saying, you know what, I love steak. Which one is the best steak on the menu? And so that's kind of what the customers do is they just overall ask the broad question, what is the market like? And we just want to just blurt out whatever information that we have. So let's take a step back and here, let's go to this one. It says here, like you're going to say, oh, it's great or it's terrible. Um, but you don't know if they're going to be buying or selling. And yeah, if you've got any questions, just go ahead and put them in the comments and then I will answer them. Okay, perfect. But you don't know why they asked the question. If they're just making small talk and they just want to know overall if what they're hearing on the news is correct, that's absolutely fine. But if you're looking at this from a situation of this could be a possible client in the future, and if they are, you want to answer the question to fit them. So I always train that the right answer is why. Why are you asking me the question? I mean, they're asking you the question for a reason. Why? And I want to know, are you buying? Are you selling? And that's a very fair question because what if it's not for them? What if it's for their Aunt Mary in California? So how is the market? I don't know. I don't know what California is. And that's a very fair answer. I don't know. But what I do know is I have friends in California that if they're looking for a real estate agent, that I can match them up with. So you've got to have some indication, some context as to why they are asking you that question so that you can answer it. Another example is if you go to the doctor and you just say, "Hey, I'm not feeling good. Why am I not feeling good?" And then they just start prescribing you medication and doing all kinds of tests without asking you anything. And that's why, as irritating as it is, when they give you that long form with like feels like a million questions on there that you don't want to answer because you just want them to fix you. They have to know what it is, what the problem is in order to fix you. And so you've got to ask those questions. You need to be inquisitive. I don't think that it is being nosy. If you feel that way, I would challenge you to say, you probably don't understand how the market is, and you're not coming from a place of value or education. Because if you're coming from a place of value or education, you need information in order to answer that question. Now, you can just cite the headlines and say it's a terrible market, but terrible market where? Tampa, Miami, Gainesville, buyer, seller, condo, 500,000, a million. See, it can be whatever it is, and you can make it whatever you want it to be, but you're not bringing value if you don't know specifically what the person is asking and why they are asking for it. So the first question I say is, yeah, I say, why? And they will tell you, they'll just tell you and they'll say, "Oh, I was just curious if what I saw in the headlines is true." Or they'll say, and this is what you want, "Well, we were thinking about selling." Or we were thinking about buying, or my neighbor put their house on the market and it hasn't moved. So now you've got context in here. And so I'll ask them if it's for them or if it's for someone else. And then I want to know if they are a buyer, because that's a different market today than it is for a seller. And if they're a seller, I also need to know, are you also buying? Are you going to rent? I need to know, are you moving out of the area? I also need to know when. Because if I find am talking to somebody and they are going to be selling, but they're not planning to sell for a year or 2 years, I will straight up say, I don't know, my crystal ball is broken because I can't forecast. If I could forecast that far in advance, I wouldn't even be talking to you because I'd be so rich. I would be on a tropical island someplace. So my crystal ball is broken. I don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. I don't know what the market's going to be like in 2 years. I know what it's like today if you're looking to buy or sell today, but I don't know. And I'm just not a fan of playing the what if game. So I need to know, what is your time frame? I also need to know, what is the product? If you're going to be selling, is it a condo? Is it a student condo or is it a condo on the beach? What is the price range of the condo? So you've got to become very inquisitive about what the product is, who are you answering the questions for, where is the property located, what time frame are they wanting to have this thing taken care of, and what is their motivation, why. So for example, today I had somebody reach out to me and she wanted to talk about selling her home, and my first question to her is, why? Why now? Like, I know that it's a hard market for sellers. Maybe it can be, but it also can't be. So I need to know, what is the motivation behind this? And she had shared with me that they had already bought a house in Miami. She lives in Miami, and her partner unfortunately passed away. And so they were going back and forth between the two properties. But now that this has happened, she's not going to make the trip by herself anymore. And so she wants to sell the property. So I was like, okay, so she wants to sell, not that she needs to sell. So I needed to find out, is it tenant occupied? Is she the only owner of this property? Is there some other decision maker, maybe another family member or a sibling or a child or another friend that also has to make this decision? Was there a price at which she wasn't going to sell? So if, let's say, the house was only worth 150,000 and she wanted 500, then that just wasn't going to work out. So I needed to know her motivation. And she says, "Well, what do you think the market's doing?" "I think they're doing around 300." And I was very honest and I said, "I don't know. I don't even know the address of your property." So without knowing the address of your property, I can't even begin to tell you what the market is like in that area. I also don't know if you've got tenants or you do or don't have tenants. If you have tenants, I don't know when the lease ends. So I need a lot more information from you to find out what answers I can give you. I also need to know things like, what is your motivation? I've got someone right now who is very ill and absolutely has to sell in record time. One, because they're very ill and they don't want to leave this situation to family members. They want it taken care of before that time comes. They also need the money. And so that is a whole different price than what the market is doing, because the market is doing one number that take about 120 days to 160 days on average to get that number. So if they want a record number or a record closing, they're going to have to make some drastic changes to it. And they did, and we've got it under contract in 7 days. So in order to answer the question correctly, you need to ask a lot of questions. I personally feel if the person who's asking these questions gets upset or they get hurt about, like, oh my gosh, why are you asking so many questions? You're probably not a real client for me. And this is just surface level conversation. And then I'll just generally talk about the market as a whole. It's kind of like, how's the weather? But if you are, if they're truly interested in the answer, then they are going to give you the right to your questions so they can get the right answer. So, think about that. Like, if you truly do want to know the answer to something and somebody's like, hey, well, what about let's go back to the restaurant. You're at the restaurant and you say something like, hey, what's good on the menu? And then they ask you, do you eat a certain way? Are you keto? Are you vegan? Are you vegetarian? Do you like everything? And you say, okay, well, I definitely like, I'm a protein eater. And then they'll say, okay, well, are you cutting carbs? Are you looking for a dessert? So they start going through the answers on the questions on there for you, so they can help narrow it down and just saying, well, everything on the left side is really, really good. So if they want to know the answers, they will answer your questions so that they can get to what they need to do. Other things that you're going to want to ask them in order to answer this question is, if they're looking to buy, what's your budget? When are you looking to buy? What area? Why are you buying? Some people are buying for investment opportunities. And then if it's an investment opportunity, what kind? Are we long-term hold? Are we an investor and we're going to do Airbnbs? Are we looking to have something where it's close to, like, Mickey Mouse? Or are you wanting a college town? Or do you want beachfront? Do you want to maintain the outside, or do you want a condo where you don't have to do any of that, but you have higher fees? So you've got to ask all the right questions in there. Of course, it's also, what is your budget? What is your area? When do you need to do that? Because what is it going to be next year? I don't know. I don't know what's going to be next year. I don't know what's going to even happen at the end of this year. I have some forecasting ideas, but nothing I'm going to, bet my paycheck on, because who knows what could happen. Somebody can tweet something and everything goes absolutely crazy. So how do you learn what is going on in the market? Because that's really what's going to bring you into the next field. If you cannot answer the question, how is the market? You're probably not going to get any customers. And so when I train my agents, I tell them this. Imagine that we're both at the same function and we're standing together talking. A random stranger walks up to us and they ask that question: how's the market? I'm going to look at you and wait for you to answer. And a newer agent or an experienced agent is going to start going, oh, and then they're just going to spew information. And of course, the person then looks at me and then they want my opinion on how the market is. And I'm going to go through the questions. And I'm going to be like, well, are you buying or selling? Is this for you or a family member? What time are we talking about? What budget are you in? Why is this happening now? And then with that information, I can drill down and say, okay, so you're looking to move next year when you graduate from school and you need to sell your house, that's going to be in the spring market. So you're probably going to want to list in like February because the doctors match in March and they want to close at the end of May, early June. And so at that point, you can probably price a little bit higher because that's when the buyers are coming out. Yes, you will have more competition. So you got to think about that. So do you see, I'm coming from a place of value. I know my information. I have put a lot of thought into what they need, and my answer is specific to their situation. I'm not 100% saying, oh, your house is going to be 350,000. I don't know. I haven't seen your house. So I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't know what you're going to do to get it ready for market. And I don't know who your competition is going to be at that time and what they're going to price. But I can come up with a game plan to help you. So if you were that person, who do you want to work with? Do you want to work with the person who just rattled off a bunch of information that probably had nothing to do with you? Or do you want to work with the person who went through and asked you a lot of questions, put a lot of thought into it so that they can be considerate of your specific situation? And then from there, be able to continue to build on it and can stay in touch with you and let you know what is happening. So now it comes down to, how do you learn what the market is doing? Well, it's not hard. There's this thing called Google, and Google all day long will be happy to spit out information from you from all kinds of different sources. You can go to Redfin, you can go to Zillow, you can go to realtor.com, you can go to any news outlet, and you can read up on the latest articles of what is happening in the news and the big changes. Now, I'm looking for facts. I'm not looking for somebody's opinion. There's lots of opinion like the market is falling, the market is falling. Um, that that kind of doom and gloom sells, and there's a group of people that feed on that, but it's not fact. I mean, I want my facts in there. I want to know year over year what is happening with the number of homes that came on the market versus the homes that sold. Are they closing at 100% list to sold ratio, or are they down? And then you need to break that down by market and price point and area. So that is how you learn. So you can just start with an overall picture of like, okay, I can go and I can read what is happening on the internet. The next thing is that you can use ChatGPT. And when you're doing that, you need to feed it good data, because garbage in is going to be garbage out. And if you don't know how to use ChatGPT, Google and YouTube are going to show you how to use ChatGPT. But you can use ChatGPT. I use it all the time. And I take the MLS information and I pull data from the MLS and I feed ChatGPT. So, for example, if I'm wanting to learn about a specific subdivision, I will pull all the closed sales. So let's say 3 years. I will pull all the closed sales for 3 years. I will pull all the active and pending sales in there. And then I will ask it, like, give me the year over year change in listed properties. And it will say, hey, there was 100 houses listed in 2023, 95 listed in 2024, and summer of 2025, there was only 80 listed. And then I would say something like, okay, now go to the major news outlets, realtor.com, Zillow, local sources, and see what you can find to tell me why there is a declining inventory in there. And then it will give me its information. Now, I do not believe it to be gospel. I do not do that. I definitely do the research because it will cite a lot of articles, and then you can go and read the articles and see if you agree or disagree with that article. And I mean, everybody's got an opinion, right? So does ChatGPT. It's going to give you a lot of different sources. You just got to find the one that you believe in and that you're going to want to use. And then you can say, okay, well, what's the average time on market? And what's the list to close ratio? What information do you see is causing the houses that sold faster than the ones that are not moving? It could be a huge source of information. So now you can get to know the neighborhoods and the information. And then when somebody says, hey, I'm looking to buy and I would like to have an area that's around $350,000. And then you could be like, oh, I know three areas that are around $350,000. You now have information. And if you do that for every single neighborhood, then when somebody comes to the area and they say, look, I'm looking for a house that's, between 350, 400,000. I'm looking for an area that has good turnover ratios because in the next 2 years, I'm going to graduate from medical school and I'm going to go ahead and need to sell or I'm going to want to rent it. If you have done your research, you will know automatically based on the history what has happened and you can forecast a little bit like maybe it will be good in 2 years. Now, why do I say maybe? Why do I say I'm doing all this work, but I'm not going to forecast? Because what happens if that neighborhood is doing so great for turnover and history shows that it's doing well? Well, what happens if a huge developer comes in and builds 1,000 homes around that neighborhood? That's going to impact the resale value in 2 years. That is going to impact the rental rates in 2 years. So I will do some forecasting, but I'm also going to have my disclaimer like things can change. Anything can change. So, based on the last 3 years, this is what I'm seeing that's happening. Of course, that might happen in 2 years, but again, my crystal ball is broken. And I don't know if that, 200 acres back there is going to get bought up by D.R. Horton and they're going to build 600 homes. And now you're going to have competition. So you have information to help someone make an educated decision if it's immediately right now. And you have some information to forecast if they're saying, well, I'm thinking about doing this in the next year, but I'm not 100% sure like what is going on. And I understand that they may press you and be like, well, I really need to know now. But that doesn't mean that you need to accept it. So, for example, I have somebody right now. I work with a lot of doctors and in the medical field. And so a lot of people they know that they're going to finish their residency next year or fellowship and they're going to move. And so we're planning now for next year. I don't know how many homes are going to be listed next year, what they're going to look like, but I do know houses that are taken care of, that have good curb appeal, that are freshly painted and have some updates to them, like either a newer roof, water heater, HVAC, and the plumbing is up to date, will stand a better chance of moving faster than a home that is in just complete dire straits. So I can help them with that and say, hey, history shows this is what you need to do. History is showing this is what houses look like when they prepare. We will keep up with that every single month. So between now and February, you have time to get your house to look like these houses. And if we see a trend is happening that we need to pivot and change, we can do that. And then, of course, remember, you're staying up to speed on what's happening in the news. So all of a sudden you hear that uh, a huge developer is coming in around them, then you could be like, hey, since 6 months ago we last talked, this just hit the news and this is going to be what's happening. That is going to have an impact on your home. And then you can help them through that. That is the value that you need to provide. So answering the question of how's the market and somebody's just spewing stuff, please don't let that be you. You're not listening at that point and you're not bringing good value. Answer the question by asking a lot of questions and making sure that the answer is specific to the person who is asking you the information. I mean, I guess if you're a news person and you're on social media to just to be overall, how is the housing market in Gainesville? And you want to be more of a, like, as a whole, it is this. I guess you can do that, but I don't know. That's not me. I want to drill down and I want to say, okay, well, it's not one big market. There's the condo market and there's the home market. Then there is around the university market. And then there is, outside of Gainesville, when you're talking town of Tioga market. And it's not all bad and it's not all good. And I would rather tailor my information to, it depends. If you're buying a house that's over $1 million or selling a house over $1 million, well, that's going to take a lot longer to sell. It's probably going to be closer to a year to sell that house unless you really have deeply discounted it. There's just a huge amount of inventory and there's just not a lot of buyers that are like, I got $1 million. And even if they did, I want to spend $1 million on a home. But the under 400 price point, for the most part, I'd say 90% of the time, those things they go very fast. And the question is, why? And it's because there are so many people that their budget is underneath 400,000. That's all they can afford. There's not enough inventory in that price point. It doesn't matter if you're close to the university or if you're far away from the university. There's just not that much inventory. So then I know if you're in that price point, we got to move pretty quickly because you are up against a lot of competition. So again, if you're buying and you're under 400,000, it may be a little hard. But if you're buying and you're buying at 800, 900, a million, you can kind of like wait for the weekend or two and go see a house because it's probably still going to be there because you have flexibility and you have time. So that answers your question on how is the market, and that it can help you help them make the right decision on if they're going to buy or sell. And hopefully it will get you some business. It will show that you're valuable, your information is important, and that you are the person that they should stay in touch with, that is going to be thinking about them and their best interest. That is why they want to hire you, because you're going to be different from all the rest. If you have any questions, let me know. Reach out to me. I'm always happy to help, and I'll see you next week.